goodness. Honey, what did you do? Oh, that's even better.
Hi there.
I remember when all it took was a little cotton candy or a swimming pool to make my kids as happy as they could be.
My baby.
Back then, dad jokes were just kind of jokes, and the biggest drama in our lives was whether we should do pizza night on Friday or Saturday. You guys remember that? Like, back then, protecting our kids meant giving them a helmet when they rode their bike in the driveway, and I don't know, simply making sure that the door was locked at night to keep the bad guys away. But then one day, it all changed.
Hey, Dad?
Yes, sweetie.
Can I have a cell phone?
That one decision changed everything in their lives. And as a parent, it should have changed everything in our lives. But we didn't know, and nobody told us what to expect.
In detail how TikTok's algorithm serves up sex and drug videos to minors.
Research found that Instagram worsens body image issues for 1 in 3 teenage girls.
Recently called Snapchat the app of choice for sexual predators.
Products like TikTok can lead to addictive behavior.
13% of British users and 6% of American users trace their desire to kill themselves to Instagram.
The journal also disclosed Facebook's own internal research documenting the harmful mental effects of the platform.
The problem is clear. Big tech preys on children and teens to make more money.
Are only the opening chapters of a story so terrifying, no one wants to read the end of it.
So this personal and very real opener kind of highlights the subject of my video today, and it's something that every parent really needs to see. This week, I'm very happy to be working with the North Rockland Coalition for Drug Awareness and Prevention. That's an organization based in Rockland County, New York, and they use grant funding to deliver important resources like this one to communities in need. Now, if you're interested in partnering with the North Rockland Coalition to deliver resources like this to your students or to your neighbors, please reach out to them directly at northrocklandcoalition.org. Now on with the show. But I do know that there are some very enthusiastic teenagers that follow my channel, and you should, okay? Keep doing that. But there's no need for you young ones to watch any more of this video. You won't like it, all right? So find something else to do. Trust me. I have another video for you, and it's sponsored by the same group. It's more useful, it's more entertaining. It's called Online Privacy Tips for Teens, and there are some game changers in there that you will absolutely love. So why don't you just jump to that one if you're just hanging out on YouTube? Okay, get that one done, and I'll see you down the road, okay, kids? Let's do that. Years ago, my kids decided that they wanted a cell phone. And I'm going to be honest with you in telling you that my wife and I kind of wanted them to have one too. You know, like we wanted to be able to communicate with them and know where they are at certain times. And on top of that, we did want our kids to have fun. We wanted them to be social, like to feel connected to their peers. And we wanted them to explore their world. But we didn't want to lose them in the process. We didn't want them to forfeit their childhood and irrevocably sacrifice their privacy, sacrifice their innocence in the process of simply getting a cell phone. Honestly, it turns out today, we now know there's no way to do that. It's a package deal. The moment that your child becomes active on social media, the moment they begin receiving unsupervised messages from other kids who are on social media, they will be exposed to a daily onslaught of pornography, profanity, and profoundly mature content that no parent would ever accept if they saw it happening in their presence. But most of this will not be happening in your presence, and your kids are not going to talk to you about it for sheer fact alone that it will be embarrassing as heck. But there's also the fear that you might limit their activity or take the device away, so it just doesn't happen. You need to know that the moment they open a social media account, the instant that they get a Gmail account on their Chromebook, you have consented, or your 10-year-old child has consented on your behalf, or in some cases your school has consented on behalf of your family, that your child can now be tracked, traced, monitored, and manipulated by incredibly invasive technology that is designed with the sole purpose of raising your child, shaping and molding your child in a likeness and with an outlook that benefits whoever wants to pay for it. And the technology works. Unfortunately, it's ruining kids' lives in the process. From dangerously lax and tragically ill-informed views on drug use, to open acceptance of child pornography, to mind-crushing manipulation that is proven to not only debilitate your child's sense of self, but also to amplify several forms of mental illness. Guys, all of that has become very, very clear. Social media has become probably the most destructive force in your kid's life. And once you let it in, it's going to leave a mark. And it's not going to be a good mark. But it gets worse, because our kids aren't just receiving bad stuff, right? They're sharing it too. And their innocence is being used against them. They are in our homes. They're sitting in their own bedrooms, but they're in an unsupervised environment with access to the world. And everything that they see, everything that they say, everything that they share is being recorded and preserved as if it were to live forever inside of a museum. And it can be reviewed or reproduced at any time by almost anyone who chooses to do so, whatever their motive might be in doing that. Most parents today tell me that they literally have no idea how to tell what their kid is seeing and sharing online. But for so many of those families, the families that I have to talk to, that ignorance is suddenly and irreparably shattered the day that reality comes knocking, the day that something really bad happens, and it's too late to fix. As I am filming this, friends, people are being fired, arrested, divorced, sued, and kicked out of college for things that they said or shared on social media years ago. And I teach kids this. I show them painful, real-world, everyday examples of this, and you can do that too. And they will nod at you as if they understand, but in reality, the average 16-year-old kid, once they receive that information, they have a very predictable and a very unsettling response. It goes something like this. An interesting facet that I noticed today is that my older kids, the 16, 17, and 8-year-old students that I work with, they do see it. They get it very clearly. In fact, there's not a lot of work that I have to do there. They've experienced it themselves. They know kids that are suffering from it. Most of their friends are explaining that they suffer from some form of anxiety or depression, and they get a lot of times where that's coming from. The tragedy is they're trapped at that point. My 16 and 18-year-old kids, everybody seems to have it then. They kind of built their world around it since they were younger. They can't envision themselves without it at that point, and it just is. Consequences and all. And these guys are just accepting it. It hurts me. It hurts my heart as a father. It's important for me to point out that this is not a moral failure. It's not a character flaw in the world of our kids, right? It's a known facet of adolescent psychology that's played out in various ways through time. Today, it's being seen here more than anything else. It's not their fault. They can't help it. But the tech companies know what's going on. They admit it. They're equally aware of these vulnerabilities, and they admit that they're using it against our children. They actually explain how they do so in research, and there's been testimony delivered to the extent at which they kind of mold kids like Play-Doh in their hands. You and I were once teens too. You and I were this way too, immature, easily impressionable, but trillion-dollar companies weren't using these weaknesses against us the way they're being used today. Trillion-dollar companies didn't have access to us and our minds 24 hours a day, anytime they want, by simply vibrating a device in our pocket. They couldn't just artificially amplify the virtue of one viewpoint. They couldn't just censor or block another viewpoint from getting to us if they didn't want us to see it. They can control us in ways today that they never could before, and that's why our teens are in so much trouble. By the way, do you know who else is using this powerful technology against your kids? The pedophiles, the predators, and the misguided peers who now have instant and unsupervised access to your kids at any time of day, no matter where they are. As long as they're online, they can get to them. And they're using it with horrifying consequences. So I think at this point you get it, right? Listen, you and I are friends, whether you know it or not. Like, even if you disagree with me on some things, even if you've found a way to not like me, which is preposterous, but you and I are friends. We're on the same team. We're both parents. And I would risk my life for your kid if you weren't there, and you would do the same for me. And I know that that's true. You don't need to know who I am. You don't have to agree with me on everything. We're on the same page as parents. No matter where you stand on this issue, no matter whether or not you part ways with me on one thing or another, I do know that you get it. You know that the kids are in trouble. You can't dispute that, but you probably don't know what to do about it. And today we're going to change that. Today we're going to do something about it. We're going to take a baby step in the right direction, and if you're still watching this video, we've already had great success. We've already done so much work because your awareness is up, your interest is peaked. This issue now has your attention, and that's a huge part of the solution. I say it's the most important part of the solution. So if I've captured your intent at this point, I am now going to empower you with some life skills that you probably didn't have 4 minutes ago. For example, I want you to know that there are plenty of options available for parents who just do want to give their kids a phone that they can communicate with, and parents can check up on their location. But the phone won't be used against them. It won't be tracking absolutely everything that they do, and they can use other devices for the internet. Those options exist if you didn't know. One is called the GAB phone, G-A-B, and it's great for that kind of basic phone use without any of the other garbage. Trumi is another option of a phone that can be locked down pretty easily by parents. It's a relatively limited functional phone and relatively inexpensive. But if you've got a kid that you feel, I don't know, maybe should have access to some of the smartphone tech, maybe you want them to have limited access to social media, I would definitely go with the Bark phone, B-A-R-K. It's a pretty cool looking phone, good tech, it's got a nice camera. It can easily be locked down by any parent, and it also makes monitoring your kids' online life much easier for parents. It actually does most of it automatically, so you can kind of go about your day knowing that Bark is in the background. It's going to let you know if there's conversations of self-harm, suicide, bullying, drug content, stuff like that. It's going to give you an alert when any of that happens. You can also use Bark software on your children's other devices. There's a lot of advantages there, and yes, they can keep their current phone number if they already have a phone that they're using. You can just port that right over. So those are some great options for parents who might not have known otherwise. While we're at this basic stuff, I just want to make sure that you have at least activated the parental controls on your child's phone. Like, even if you're not going to stop them from doing anything, you need to at least see what's going on in the most rudimentary way. I'm an old goat when it comes to helping parents protect their kids online. I've been doing it for over 15 years. And to this day, I am straight up baffled by how many parents actually don't know what their kids are doing on their phone. They have no way of knowing when they're using it, how much they're using it. And if you're a parent, you got to know this stuff, okay? You have to know what's happening. You need to know what time they were watching TikTok to last night, or how often they're being interrupted by Instagram when they're supposed to be taking a science test. I mean, that's kind of critical information. So please, make sure that even if you don't install limits or block any content, that you are the administrator of your child's cell phone. It's quick and easy for everybody to do, and that's going to at least give you some insight as to how often they're being interrupted by it and how much it's imposing into their life. Now, using those parental controls, you can also install some very basic protections that all kids should have installed on their phones, like disabling the tracking and location sharing that's going to happen by default on their devices if you don't go in there and turn it off. Got other videos on that, and you can watch other videos on that, mine or somebody else's. Some basic techniques that you can just limit some of the invasiveness, the intrusiveness of that device being in their lives, and you can't do that unless you activate parental controls. So get that done. By the way, did you know that there's an easy way to see what apps and websites your child is visiting online? This method isn't going to give you the actual content. You're not going to see the actual videos or the actual posts themselves. There's other ways of doing that. But for now, I did want you to know about this powerful way to see what devices they're using, when they're using it, and basically what they're using those devices for. And you can use this to check in on them at any given time. So you're going to know if they're accessing bad sites or using apps that you don't approve of when they're not supervised. And it's a free method that actually works whether they're using your home Wi-Fi network or whether they're using the cellular data in their phone when they're out in the wild. That's a pretty unique benefit of this particular technique. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to nextdns.io. You're going to create a free account, and then you're just going to follow the instructions to change the DNS server on all of your child's devices. Everything from their cell phone to their gaming system, their computer, and their smart TV. If anything that I just said intimidates you in any way, stop it. This is easy, and it's also easy to undo if you think you messed something up. You're not going to mess anything up. Just follow the basic instructions on the Next DNS website. Guys, it literally takes 10 minutes, and I think 10 or 15 minutes from now, you're going to realize that this is a game-changer technique that you can use to gain incredible insights and sometimes some very scary insights into what's going on online with your kids. So I'm filming this video in May of 2024, and I think in about a week I'm going to publish a separate video that's going to walk you through the DNS change and all the functions. I have some pretty cool details that I can put in that video when I have time, but you don't really need that right now. It's pretty simple. You can push through it and it's worth it. Once you do this, you're going to get a ton of knowledge on your kids' online habits. And by the way, you can use DNS filters to block all kinds of content, to stop all kinds of common hacking exploits, and you can do even other things with with it. So it's an important technique for everybody to have. I want you to check it out and then come back to the page in maybe a week or two if you're viewing this in May of 2024, and you can see the walkthrough of that subject in more detail. Let's go to the settings on your phone, and I want you to turn off Wi-Fi. Just for practice, okay? Turn off the Wi-Fi. I want you to do that from now on, anytime that you leave your home, the safety of your home network. And I want you to teach your kids how to do that too. Please require that they do that. Double check it when you pull out of the driveway in the morning. It's really important, because if you didn't know, if your child was to walk past a bad guy in public, they can easily find out the home address of your kid in a matter of seconds by simply accessing the data that's on your phone, and they can do that remotely without you, your kid, or anyone else knowing. Your phone actually gives that kind of stuff away without your knowledge. It's wireless. For now, I don't want you to worry about the explanation, but if you want to know more, you can watch this video on my YouTube channel to learn exactly how that happens. But it's enough to know that you simply turn off Wi-Fi when you're outside your house, and that's basically the only way that you can prevent this from happening. And you need to make sure that you're doing it. Please make sure that your kids are doing it. If they do, they are instantly far safer than the kids that are sitting next to them on the school bus right now. Did you know that anyone can instantly access a detailed street view of your home with your cars in the driveway and your dog playing in the yard just by Googling your name or address? No big deal? Well, that kind of privacy intrusion, which may be legal, is exactly the kind of unsettling leverage that is commonly used against children to pressure them into sending damaging photos and doing other bad things online. What a bad guy will do is he'll live thousands of miles away, but he will use that Google Street View image to scare your child into thinking that they know where you live. They could be driving by or just sitting outside, and they could strike out at you or your family at any moment if your kid doesn't do what is being asked of them. I hear about it all the time. It's a common technique that's employed online, and guys, you can do something about that. I want you to go onto Google Street View. I want you to find your house on Google Street View, search for your address, and bring it into view. You're then going to click on this button and follow the prompts. I want you to submit a request to blur out the image of your home. They'll do it for you. It's free, right? All you got to do is ask. And if you just take care of this one thing, you've already done something pretty big to stop this very common threat from happening to you or your kids tomorrow. And you didn't even know you could do it, right? You're welcome. Moving right along. I want you to make sure that none of your social media accounts and none of your kids' gaming accounts can be tied back to the same email address, okay? So whether it's Roblox or Minecraft or DoorDash or Instagram, we want to make sure that there's a separate email address on each one of those accounts, that the primary email address is different. Now, if that confuses you at all, it's okay. You're just like this little internet chickie. You're just learning this kind of technology stuff. It's cool. All you want to do is set up what are called proxy emails on each one of those accounts, and that is really cheap, really easy. In fact, it's probably going to be free for you. You're going to log on to maybe Simple Login, just a personal reference that you could use there. I'm not an affiliate in any way. And you're going to get separate email addresses for all of these things. Those messages will be forwarded wherever you need them to go. But that one simple technique, guys, is going to stop bad guys from instantly uncovering every single online account that you or your child has in one quick and easy step. They can do that now just by searching for one email address online, and there are websites that do all the hard work for them. They just put in the search of that one email address and they'll get everything, okay? So they can go and find your kid, follow your kid, stalk your kid, manipulate your kid, groom your kid in all of these different platforms as different personalities on each platform. Different email addresses will help stop that from happening. So we're going to make sure that that happens. You probably didn't even know that people could do that, right? They can, and they do. You need to stop it. So we're going to work that tip in there as well. Next, please agree to stop sharing photos of your face online, especially on social media. If you're still doing that, you are living in 2015, and we are 10 years down the road. You got to wake up. Please make sure that your kid understands this, because it's now one of the easiest ways for bad people to stalk you or your children online. Your pictures are being scraped up and sold for profit by several companies, and they can... What's that? You own them? You didn't consent to that? Oh no, you consented, and you don't own them anymore. If you share them on social media, they're not yours. They might look like you. They might have your pet dog in them, but they're not yours. You gave them to the social media, and you gave away all your rights to them. That's a fact. Those photos are not yours, and you're not going to get them back. To prove my point, head on over to Google. I want you to click this button for the first time in your life and try submitting a very clear picture of yourself. Watch what comes back. And this is just a free, easy search. If you want to pay a few bucks to a company like maybe Clearview or PimEyes to search for your photos online, you're going to see some incredible things. You're not going to believe what's out there. And these pictures, by the way, there's a lot of information attached to them. It's not just a photo of your face. They're going to provide links and other things that will lead right back to your no longer private life. So if your child has social media and posts pictures of their face online, it's now pretty easy for anyone to snap a picture of their face out in public and instantly find out all kinds of intimate data about their life. That wasn't possible just a few years ago, but it's free and it's an easy reality today. You gotta fix it. Oh, right, but you want to share pictures of yourself on social media, right? I mean, that's kind of why you got it in the first place. You just don't want the bad guys to access it or companies to store, sell, and share it forever, right? Friends, that's a reasonable desire, maybe a reasonable expectation 10 years ago, but it's not possible today. It's just not a reality. So you kind of have to decide what's more important to you, a few likes on social media or opening yourself up to any weirdo across the world to kind of exploit your life at any point down the road because we left a trail of breadcrumbs leading right back to us. Technology changes, circumstances change, and this has changed. So it's really important that you change along with it. Because listen, you have to make this decision, and I sincerely have no judgment for you either way, but I do have immeasurable sympathy for the so many families that I've had to work with that have learned this the hard way. Oh look, here's another family now that just learned the hard way that the pictures they let go yesterday are coming back to haunt them today. If you want to know more about how people stalk you and your kids online, you can watch this video right here. It's going to blow your mind, and I'm only going to scrape the surface in that video. I actually have tons of these videos for you, and you should subscribe to my YouTube channel to make sure you get notified when I put a new one out, because this stuff literally changes daily. But what we want to do now is segue into some real-world guidance for parents. I want to empower you with some research-based guidance that you may not have had time to research before going down this road with your family. What's that? Oh, you want to know at what age your kid can safely have social media? Well, I want you to remember that's a good question, and this is going to be up to you because you're probably not going to like the answer. But since you asked, knowledgeable psychologists and parenting experts today don't think that kids should ever have social media. And that's a conclusion that is based in very troubling and statistically measurable trends. Most professionals actually don't recommend social media for adults either, by the way. That's real. It's concerning. The kids aren't the only ones who are affected by it, but all kids are affected much more profoundly than adults are. If you didn't know, there is constantly today some form of formal legislation being proposed in state and federal legislatures to make the minimum age of accessing social media at least 18. Now, it doesn't matter how you feel about the legislation. It's kind of how you feel about your kids here. That's my point. Social media is terrible for them, and it boils down to how tolerant you are of inviting these unnecessary risks into your child's lives. And there's not a value statement there. Please don't read into it, because that assessment is going to be different for you than it is for me. And no matter what you think on this matter, I'm okay with it. You be you, it's your family, nothing but respect. But I do want you to know that there is no safe age at which they can get it, but I can promise you that the later they get it, the better. Speaking to me in my life, my kids have never had social media, and one of them is almost an adult. He has a job, he's driving. But to assuage your natural concern for my kids in that situation, they're not just fine. Both of them admit today that they're much better off without it in their life. That wasn't their feeling when they were 13, because some of their friends had social media when they were 13, and there was a transition period there where they kind of had to up their game in contacting and communicating with friends. It just happened so easily and naturally. It's artificially promoted, through the social media apps, and my kids had to grow through that. It turned out to be very good for them. Now, even the social media companies recommend that no kid uses their products before the age of 13. Okay, that's pretty important, because that's a wrong benchmark, and even the social media companies are committing to that, which is really saying something. If your kid is under 13, hold off on the Instagram, okay? It's for their betterment, it's for their own safety and their own good. And even the social media companies themselves, who are the worst resource on this topic, they will say, yeah, under 13, do something else. Your 12 or 13-year-old kid is going to be fine without Instagram, and I can promise you that. Okay, now listen, we all have different lives, different factors, different circumstances, but all things being considered equal, the absence of social media is not going to destroy your child, and they're going to be better off without it in their lives. They're going to get a couple more years of childhood to enjoy and to experience a little bit more peace and tranquility at night. They'll be less tied to, the whims and the fickle scenarios and the gossip that goes on online. And so in making your decision, I do want you to know from the basis of knowing that the sane world has acknowledged kids aren't ready for social media until they get closer to that age of 18. Their brains just aren't there yet. Many professionals today recommend against it altogether. You're going to decide what's best for you. That's who needs to be making this decision. You're not a bad parent if you feel otherwise, of course. I just want you to know that if you are in the group, and it's a growing group that says, you know what, I don't want my kids to have it, okay? They're going to be good. All things equal, it's going to be a much bigger benefit to them than having it. But some of you have already made that choice, right? Maybe it happened years ago, and it seems impossible to go back on that now. It probably is. Kids today who have had social media since they were like 13, they just don't seem to be able to do what kids used to be able to do as they get older. They've clearly missed some developmental milestones in their lives. And kids who have been on social media, they're much more dependent on the network than kids who don't use social media are. The kids on social media are much more fully committed to groupthink on many different things than the kids that don't use social media are. The kids that are on social media, they can't seem to connect and build relationships the way that we were meant to. If you were to suddenly remove social media from their lives, these kids would legitimately lose their ability to connect. I see that happen all the time. They have no ability to start a new relationship and to maintain a new relationship without being artificially promoted and greased by social media. Many kids, when you remove social media from their life, actually lose their concept of self because it was just created online and now that's been pulled away. Many say that they feel lost without the direction and constant guiding influence of algorithmically enhanced social behavior. They don't know which group to follow or which current that they should be in. Removing social media from a kid's life who has already had it for several years, it's like trying to ask a kid to walk after they've sat in a wheelchair for the past 4 years of their life. And forging their own path today, it's just not going to be like going out and standing on your own 2 feet. For kids that have been on social media, forging your own path, as tragic as it sounds, it means finding the approved group that's heading in the direction that you might want to go and doing as that group says to do. So there are some things that it's important to consider when we scale back on social media for a kid that's been using it. It's still a very good idea to do so, but there are some things that we're going to want to consider. The important thing to know is that you can't just cold turkey cut a kid off of social media. If you've come to the reasonable and responsible conclusion that it's probably not the best thing for them and we want to limit it in their life or maybe gradually work towards it being removed from their life, we have to gradually, methodologically wean them off of it, okay? So we're going to remove the apps progressively. We're going to consolidate their activity onto as few social media apps as possible. So we're going to allow them to have that lifeline and that connection by eliminating so many of the apps that they've downloaded over the years. And as they adjust to that, we can begin to reduce their time with daily curfews. Maybe we shut it off at a certain time, and with cumulative limits that are going to gradually reduce over the weeks and months to come. And so they're spending less and less time progressively, and they're adjusting to that as they go. If you're looking for a realistic goal that has research-based benefits that are grounded in actual study, you're looking for no more than 2 hours a day and perhaps a curfew of 10 p.m. for teenagers. Those two factors come up repetitively in research as being beneficial and being a relatively tolerable use level for most teens. Now, that should be realistic for everyone. Most kids can and do get there. In my experience, eventually they'll get there. But 2 hours a day, guys, it's still pretty bad. 2 hours a day amounts to 14 hours a week, and more than a month of their life this year will be spent alone, immersed in a malevolent and manipulative bird box of social media that happens to use their natural teenage impulses against their well-being. Just take that in. What's terrifying is that unsupervised kids today are spending 8 hours or more on social media every day. Those kids who don't have parental controls on their phone, there is no limit, and they are sucked into the compulsive world created by big tech. I regularly today see 12 and 18 hours on screen time when we install it, for some kids. And if you don't know how that's possible, it's not possible. These kids are sleeping through first through fourth period in school so they can be on social media at night. The average time today for a 14-year-old, whether they're supervised or not, is 5 hours a day. Guys, if you didn't know, that's more time than they actually spend in class at school. And what they're learning online is working against most of what they learn when they're in class at school, and it's working against all of us in the process. So if you decide to limit their social media time to maybe 2 hours a day, please know that if you've never limited this type of time before, your kid is not going to respond well to it. It's not their fault. Please have some empathy. Your 15-year-old will literally not know how to fill those hours. That's a fact. I see it almost every day. So forget what you've heard about helicopter parenting back in the 1990s. That was a different time. Your kids need you today. They've literally devolved in many ways due to their exposure and dependence on social media. So you're going to have to be involved in this process. Kids who have been raised by social media, kids who have that phone with them, they fill almost every quiet moment of the day by simply grabbing the cell phone. They fall asleep with it next to them. They wake up with it next to them. They don't know how to be kids anymore. They just do what the phone basically tells them to do, and they turn to it almost every waking moment of the day. So they're just not going to jump on a bike, grab the arts and crafts, or shoot baskets in the driveway if you take the social media away from them. They're not going to just walk through the neighborhood and hope to find other kids riding bikes in the neighborhood the way you did and you might expect them to do if they were growing up 15 years ago. Part of the reason, guys, is that those kids aren't riding bikes in the neighborhood anymore. You can't find them. They're all in their bedrooms with the shades down and a headset on staring at a screen. So it's different today. In many ways, it sucks today for kids, and they're going to need your help. But you can help them, and there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. So just know that if you don't involve yourself in this process, I worry that your kids are going to turn to the next closest, the easiest, and most effortless dopamine dump that they can access, which for 14 and up is going to be drug use. And I don't want that to happen because there are plenty of other destructive behaviors that they might turn to, and many of them have been normalized online, and therefore they've been normalized in their otherwise innocent life since the age of 12 or whenever they first got access to social media. And so a lot of the barriers and the stigmas that used to exist for things that you and I know are very risky, they don't exist anymore for kids that have been on social media. So my advice and experience is that you need to backfill any hours that you're going to reclaim from social media or gaming time in their life with some kinesthetic activities. Hopefully keep these activities social, but at a minimum, make sure that they're exploratory, that you're going into new areas that they haven't done before. Burst through the routine and introduce some new things, add some chores to their day, learn a new language with them, teach them how to fix the lawnmower, cut hair, or cook dinner, right? You're gonna get them more time with positive mentors and positive influences in their life. Join some civic groups, get them into some empowering activities, force them into sports or martial arts or things that get them moving. You be you. You got to be creative. The opportunities here are absolutely endless, but their time as a kid isn't. And we have to stop sacrificing their time as a kid to Google or Meta or TikTok. Because what we're sacrificing is much more than their time. It's much more than most of us can bear to acknowledge as parents. And once we confront that, once we understand that reality, it's pretty painful to see it happening to our own kids, our own family. But it's not a sad story. And this video is not about scary stuff. All that is over because today alone, in just 15 minutes of your time, you have made an incredible difference. We together as a partnership have made an incredible difference, and we've made a change. We didn't just complain about a problem, we began to address it, and we committed to addressing it in the future. So we're good, okay? Your kids are going to be okay because they've got you. You've got people like me and organizations like the North Rockland Coalition. We're gonna do this together. Please don't stress about perfection, okay? You don't have to be black or white on this. Just commit to progress. Work in the right direction, the direction that you're going right now. Remember, the top of this video, we learned a whole new list of skills, okay? Some cool things that you probably didn't know before you started this. What we're going through is not necessarily easy, but it's the right thing to do. And you're not alone in it. I've got a ton of resources on my YouTube channel at Timothy Shoemaker Live. And if you want me to speak at your school or in your community to expand their knowledge and awareness of this, no matter what age group you have in mind, I can do it, okay? Just talk to my people at timothyshoemaker.com and we'll make sure that we put you on the schedule. You have a lot more company here today than you think. I've been doing this for about 15 years, and I can tell you, undoubtedly, the tide is turning on this issue. It's actually flipping around now, and you can see it palpably almost everywhere I go. So we can count on being at the forefront of what hopefully will be a very big change when it comes to how we view these things in the lives of our kids. We might even be able to turn it around in time to help your kids, and I certainly hope so. Together, we will fix this. So start by using some of the tips in this video, and then I'll see you at one of my other videos. Have an awesome day.